Okay, guys, Tactics Talk 40K Drew coming at you with some more Harlequins. Today I'm going to be talking primarily about the Skyweaver jet bikes for the Harlequin Army. You're going to be probably most of the time including these in your army, and they're a very important piece of the army, I think. Overall, I think they're great. I do believe they are quite heavily overpriced, but everything in the Harlequin Codex kind of is overpriced, so we kind of get used to it. Because they're overpriced doesn't mean they're not worth taking. They do serve a purpose in the army that almost no other unit can, and that being that it's probably, in my opinion, the best way to deal with enemy armor. But before we get into that, we're going to go over what they are. So they are weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, toughness 4, initiative 5 or 6, I can't remember exactly, and 3 attacks with a leadership of 9 or 10, I can't remember. But pretty good stat line, although it only has a 4-up armor save. Still better than a 5-up invulnerable, only having the 5-up invulnerable save, which they still do have. But you know, I'm really surprised that they didn't make them have a 3-up armor save like a regular Eldar jet bike. I know the Dark Eldar jet bikes only have 5-up saves, so it's not completely ignored that they're on a jet bike. But it would have been much nicer if they had a 3-up armor save. They would have been much more usable and more worth that many points that they put them at. But that aside, they have the Mirage launchers just like all the vehicles, so instead of jinking, they can choose to pop the Mirage launchers, which will give them a 4-up invulnerable save, which is good. This way, if anything that's ignoring cover is shooting you, you're still going to get your 4-up, which is pretty darn good, especially since there's so much ignore cover in this edition. If you're playing against Eldar and a Wave Serpent Shield shoots at you, I know it's only 2d6 strength 6, but that's still enough to kill a whole unit of these jet bikes if he rolls high. So it's still a very good thing to have. On top of that, it also allows you to not jink, which is very important because you're not going to be snap shooting. And the reason why that's so important is because of their war gear. So it comes basically with a shuriken cannon. That's okay to keep the shuriken cannon on there. If you're going to do that, though, I'd probably take the the weapon. There's like a power lance weapon they can take. Basically gives them +1 strength and AP2 on the charge, and then after that, I believe it's only AP3 and strength user. This is a good weapon. However, it does replace your Star Borealis, which is a special weapon that they only get. And it is a 12-inch range, so not the greatest range, but it's strength 6, AP2, and it's a blast, so a small blast. So it's pretty good. It's a one-use only, but that's okay because typically you could end up. I almost forget to use it all the time, to be honest with you, but it is a good weapon for a couple different reasons. It gives you the flexibility to fire the Star Borealis and the Shuriken Cannon, which is really nice. However, if you take the power weapon, you lose the Star Borealis, which I don't like. And the and the power weapon is 10 points, so they're already, I think, 50 points each for a 2-wound toughness 4 4-up armor save guy. Now becomes 60 points. And then if you really wanted to, you could put the Haywire launcher, which would make him 65 points. And that's just crazy. I mean, you think about 2 of them, that's 120, 130 points for 2 jet bikes. Like that's insane. Like that's just that's just silly expensive. Now they are pretty deadly, but at the same time, the hopes of you ever getting those points back with them, or the hopes of you ever using them effectively, are very low. You're better off putting your points spread elsewhere in the army, in my opinion. But we'll talk about how I use them. How I use them is I pretty much always just give them a Haywire launcher and call it a day. And the reason for that is because the Haywire launcher is a strength 4, AP4 blast with Haywire. And it's 24-inch range, so it's a pretty good range. It doesn't keep you out of range of all the firepower your army's they're gonna take on some firepower when they fire this weapon, typically. But since they're Eldar jet bikes, you can do you can move in the assault phase after you fired 2d6 inches. So typically what I'll do is I'll take a squad of 2 of them, usually no bigger than 2, if I'm taking them this way, and then I'll fire 2 haywire blasts into a vehicle. Being it that it's a blast and it's hitting a vehicle at ballistic skill 4, you almost never miss. Almost always 1 hits at least, and you usually just cause about a glancing hit, sometimes a pen. But typically, you hit both of them and you cause at least 2 hull points. At the very least, if you're playing against other Eldar and stuff, they're going to jink because they know they're going to be taking 2 hull points, and they're going to be jinking. Like, everyone pretty much ends up jinking when they know they're getting glanced on a 2-up, especially when they're going to be hit most likely. So they're a really good fear tactic. Like, usually people who know people that know me and then I use them all the time will target them almost always first, especially if they're an army that has lots of armor. If they're an army that has, like, you know, 5 or 6 vehicles, like, they're for sure targeting my jet bikes. Like, if I'm playing against guard, they're going for those jet bikes. Those jet bikes are the biggest threat to them. And that's kind of the problem. They're really like your only good ranged anti-armor vehicles in the army, aside from shuriken cannons that are strength 6. Strength 6 is okay, but you can't do anything to anything. Like, armor 12 or higher is pretty much, or 13 or higher, you can't hurt without these haywire blasters. So if you're playing, like, against, you know, Predators or Guard or a Land Raider or anything with armor 13 or higher, or Furiosa Dreadnoughts or Ironclad Dreadnoughts and stuff like that, you're going to have a very hard time without these jet bikes to help you. Yes, your Harlequins can take things that can hurt them, like you can take a haywire grenade on a Harlequin, and you can also take, like, you know, caresses to help you and the impacted weapons to help you, but typically you want these jet bikes to destroy the armor. And on top of that, you also need, if you're playing, for example, against Necrons, and there's a whole bunch of barges with a bunch of Necron warriors inside, you need to be able to pop those transports in order for your Harlequin troop to charge into the unit of guys. Like, you just need to. It's the only way you're going to get them, really, is by blowing up those transports. And the good thing about this is that because they're 24-inch range and you have the assault move, you can move right on the edge of your range of fire, and then as soon as you hit all your weapons, you can jet bike away 2d6 away from the opponent's gun lines, or sometimes even into a cover situation, which I have done, and potentially even blocking line of sight completely. This is the best way of using the jet bikes, in my opinion, to be able to pop out, move 12 inches, or I usually move, if I find a wall, like, in the middle of the battlefield, or if I'm playing with somebody and we're setting up terrain, usually I'll put up a big piece of terrain, like building that you can't see through, put one on each of the sides of the table, or one in the middle if there's only one, and use that to my advantage to block line of sight and get my jet bikes in and out of the cover, in and out of line of sight to fire, and do as much damage as possible before my opponent wraps around them and takes them out. Normally he's going to have to dedicate 2 units, move 2 units in position in order to stop me from doing that. And that buys you time for shooting more haywire grenades and also getting your Star Weavers across the table. So that's a good way of using them. It's, in my opinion, the best way. I know it's a lot of points. You think about it, it's a 55 points per jet bike for 1 haywire launcher. And realistically, you can't jink because they're blasts. So you're pretty much forced to never jink with this model. If you jink, you're not shooting next turn, therefore you're not doing anything next turn. So that's their biggest weakness. Their biggest weakness is they cannot jink when you equip them with a haywire blaster, or haywire launcher, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a haywire launcher. So you have to be very careful. You only get 1 turn with your Mirage launchers, and then after that you're relying on a 5-up invulnerable save. So that's why I recommend you get into a building after you fire. You're going to get at least a 4-up cover save. So therefore there's no need to jink because you're not going to get anything better for jinking. And if you ignore covers, well, then you still do have your 5-up invulnerable save. And hopefully they last long enough that they can do the damage they need to do before they die. I don't recommend taking them in much, but if you're going to play them this way, I don't recommend taking them in bigger units than a 2 squad. Because, I mean, realistically, there's no reason to take them bigger than 2 big, because, well, if they get in a bad position and or they get hit with a large blast that ignores cover, something like that, you could just lose all of them. Versus where if you had multiple units, he's going to have to target multiple units, and it's going to be harder for him to deal with all of them. And since they can fire, and also you'll be able to fire at more targets as well, and do more damage to more different vehicles, which is also really good. The next thing to talk about is we're going to talk about how to use them the other way. So this way being, you put them with the Shuriken Cannon and you put them with the power weapon. This is a good configuration, don't get me wrong. Like, they can do a good job of crushing your opponent with sheer number of high strength, high AP attacks. Because if you think about it, their Furious Charge, the power weapon gives them +1 strength on the charge. So you're looking at +2 strength, so you're at 3, 4, 5, strength 5, AP 2 at initiative 6, I think, with 4 attacks on the charge. That's a lot. That's a lot at weapon skill 5. That's a lot of damage. On top of that, you got to keep. You also got to remember you're firing, your Shuriken cannons before going in. Probably. Typically, if you're using them this way, you're going to be charging into something like with high armor saves, so like Space Marines or anything with AP 3, armor 3 or better. This is a good target for them. So they can kind of fill the role of something your Harlequins might not be able to do. If you cook your troops out to be dealing with the light infantry, your jet bikes can definitely deal with the heavy elite infantry that have good armor. So that is another way of using them for sure. And the other advantage of using them this way is you always get to be. It's a lot easier to use them this way. So if you're not someone who's really good at remembering to jetpack move your jet bikes out of the way every turn, which believe me, I've forgotten it many times and lost them because of that. Or sometimes it's a little risky because you only roll like 3 inches and then you can't get behind the cover and then you're vulnerable again. But it's definitely something you can use them for, because you can jink and still shoot your Shuriken cannons. It's only snapshotting, yes, but it still doesn't inhibit your ability to charge them. So you are able to jink as much as possible, and that's okay. That's pretty good. That's a good way to kind of use them. But typically, I don't use them that way, mainly because I just have my Harlequins deal with the heavy armor stuff. If you listen to my troop video, you'll explain why I don't use them that way. Your troops pretty much can deal with almost all infantry in the right circumstances as long as you do correct movement and have the correct war gear. So I feel that the bikes need to be taking out the armor because the Void Weaver is just not enough. It's just not enough anti-armor for me. It just doesn't do. I mean, yeah, you can take a squad of 3 of them, but really, if all you're going to rely on is 3 Haywire blasts, it's not enough to deal with an army that has multiple vehicles. Like, you're going to be able to maybe only take out 1 vehicle. That's at best, and that's not enough. Especially, that's if you roll perfect and he fails all his saves. You've killed 1 vehicle. Congratulations. So, I mean, it's good. I'm not saying the Void Weavers are bad. I'm just saying, I think that the Harlequins, if you're playing them alone, they need to take those Haywire blasters, and that's why I've equipped mine with them, because I like playing my Harlequins, purist with just Harlequins, no allies. Lots of times it's harder for sure to play them this way. But if you're thinking about taking Harlequins on their own, the bikes with the Haywire blasters are very key. The other reason why I say that is because you don't sacrifice your Star Borealis as well. So you're still going to have your Strength 6 AP 2 blast and your Haywire blast you can fire at something before, to help take out infantry, for example. So because the Haywire blast is Strength 4 AP 4 and the other blast is Strength 6 AP 2, you can pretty much kill anything with that. I mean, yeah, the AP 4 one, if you're firing, for example, against the Necrons or something like that, like, you're going to kill quite a few Necron warriors because you're going through all of their armor. Even though the Strength 4 shots are wounding on 4s, that's still potentially like 4 dead Necron warriors just from 1 jet bike. So if you have a unit of 2 of them, that's still 8 dead Necron warriors, provided he roll. Well, if he has a Necron Decurion detachment, it could be less, but on average, it's going to be about 4 or 5 dead Necron warriors, which is half the squad, which is nothing to sneeze at, really, if you think about it, because after that, you could be charging into them and then hitting and running the following turn. Because they're going to hit you on 4s and wound you on 4s, they're not going to do that much damage because they only got 1 attack each, the overwatch isn't going to matter too much because you could jink at that point because you've already fired. So it doesn't matter if you jinx because you're still going to be able to fire. And yeah, it's a good way of getting them out of the harm's way. If you can thin out the unit and then charge into it with only 3 or 4 guys that are attacking back with no power weapons, yeah, it's a good idea. Especially for even Space Marines, it's a good idea. If you're playing against Space Marines and you shoot a big unit tactical squad and you blow a hole like 5 big in them, and there's only 5 there standing there left, you can then charge, maybe kill 1 or 2 of them on the charge, because you're still getting 4 attacks at strength 4, which is still quite a lot of attacks at a fairly good strength with a high weapon skill. They're going to kill 1 or 2 more Space Marines. You're only going to be attacked back 4 times. It's only going to hit maybe twice, and maybe only wound you once or twice. So as long as you can pass 1 armor save or 2 armor saves, you're good. And since the bikes have multiple wounds, you're probably not even going to lose a bike. You probably won't even do anything. You might just lose a wound off a bike, and you're still set. Like, you're still good to hit and run next turn if you need to shoot them again, or shoot another vehicle, or charge another vehicle. It's up to you. Or you can hit and run, then you can flat out get the heck out of there and head off to an objective or something like that, which is another good way of last-ditching efforts to go get objectives at the final turns of the game, which I've done many times with the jet bikes. Jet bikes are really good for solving the problem that mobility of your army. They are the fastest unit in the game, really. They're faster than everything. They're on par with the same speed as the Dark Eldar and the other jet bikes, which are the fastest models in the game that are not a flyer, for example. So use that to your advantage as well. They are going to be needed that's what I mean. The jet bikes are really expensive, but they do fill the hole in the Harlequin army. They are your can do everything pretty well kind of unit. Therefore, they are very expensive. I still think they are a little too expensive for that, because you can't really take that many of them. But I've taken 2 units of 4, and they've done, or 4 units of 2, and they've done very good things for me. Another good thing to note is if you're going to take them with the power weapon method and not the Star Borealis and the Haywire launcher, I recommend you take them in the formation. I think it's one of the last formations of the book. I can't remember it, unfortunately. I don't have the book with me. I'm driving, but and I can't really look at it while I'm driving. So I am hands-free, by the way, just in case everyone's wondering. I'm not doing this like, holding my phone to my head or something. I'm just having the phone with a headset. So I'm just talking through my headset. So anyway, yeah, that formation in the back is a fantastic formation for them. All you need to take is 2 units of Skyweavers and 1 unit of Void Weavers. So that's a good way to take them if you're going to take them that way. This way you get to re-roll all your failed jinx saves. So that's really nice. I mean, no matter what, you're going to be jinking all the time, pretty much. I wouldn't even use the Mirage Launchers unless something that's firing at you ignores cover. A 4 re-rollable cover save is nothing to sneeze at. It's better than a 3-up save. So if you're taking them that way, I recommend taking them alongside with your regular detachment of Harlequins, however you're doing it, whether with the standard organization chart or with one of the other formations. I recommend taking them with that formation by the means of taking the power weapon and the jinx saves. It's just, you're going to keep them alive longer, and also you can take them bigger squads this way, because if you're going to be jinking, you're going to even if you go 4 big, 2 units of 4, it's a lot of points. You're looking at 60 points a model, so you're looking at 240 points a unit, so 480 points. Like, that's a lot. 480 points for 8 jet bikes does seem like a lot, and it is a lot. That's a lot of points to invest. But if you're playing about 1,500 points, it's definitely doable. You can definitely fit it, and they will do work for you. They will do very good things for you, and they will potentially, they are kind of like your go-to unit when you see scary units. They are your your scary unit to scare your opponents. They are very, very scary. If your opponent doesn't know what they do, and he makes the mistake of letting them get in position and charging what they need to charge, they will wipe out whatever they charge, pretty much. No problems. Some units to avoid with them would be some of the Necron shield guys. I can't remember the name of them, but they suck. They're something you can't really fight with them. Main reason being they have like a 3-up invulnerable save, and they have shields. They have what do you call them? They're toughness 5 as well, and they're really good. They have like AP 2 power weapons at strength 5 or something, I think, or maybe they're better than that. I don't know. But either way, that alone makes them not a good target for you, because you're only going to be wounding them on 4s. They're getting 3-up saves against all the hits that you've done, and it will be very hard for them to take them out. In a pinch, they could do it, because I mean, you're going to be firing a whole bunch of shuriken cannons. Like 4 shuriken cannons firing into a unit is a lot of damage, and then charging with 4 times 4 strength 5 AP 2 attacks. But your AP 2 is not really doing anything, so it's just a bunch of strength 5 attacks, which means to me I'd rather send my troop into that unit. Like basic Harlequin troops will do more damage to them with impact hits or caresses. Probably impact hits are better because you're going to be wounding them on 3s, and you're just going to cause a sheer number of wounds, make them take as many saves as possible. And this also goes with Wraiths. Wraiths are kind of in that same category. Wraiths, you don't want to be charging with your Harlequin jet bikes. They're not meant to do that. They're not going to be able to chew through something like that. So just avoid it at all costs, really. I mean, obviously, they're moving fast, but you can move even faster, so there's no excuse. You should never really be in combat with them. You can get away from them easily. Send your troops after the Wraiths and the... I can't remember the name of them now. I think Lich Guard, I think that's what they're called. Yeah, I think it's Lich Guard. I haven't played Necrons in the new book, so sorry, forgive me not knowing the names. But yeah, they're really good to take out. So I haven't played with them. I played against them. Sorry. So yeah. Anything else? There's nothing much more to say about the Harlequin jet bikes other than play with them smart. Don't throw them away. You're really going to need these guys in your army. And again, take them in the formation if you can. If you can't, you're only going to be able to take 2 squads of them because there are only 2 slots open in the organization chart. Another good way of getting these guys in that formation is to, if you have 2 Void Weavers and 2 units of jet bikes and a bunch of Skyweavers, you can use, instead of taking the Skyweavers with the Harlequin troops as dedicated transports, you can just pay for them as fast transports, and that can fill your minimum 2 fast slots for you. And that way you can still get the formation bonus from having Crescendo, and it helps you big time. It helps you big time on keeping them alive, really. Now this is only done, again, if you're going to take the power weapons, because you're not going to want to jink anyway, so it's kind of pointless. You might as well not bother. I mean, obviously you're going to get a Void Reaver that is going to get to reroll its jink saves, but then again, a Void Reaver should never be jinking because it has a Haywire launcher, or, and you don't want to be jinking with that. You want to be, you don't want to be, because it's just bad news. You're not going to be able to fire, and you're just wasting a turn of firepower with it. I mean, yeah, it gets a shuriken cannon to fire, but we'll talk about the Void Reaver another day. It's not like there's not much to it. There's not much to say about it, but I do want to go into details about its tactics as well and what I use it for. It's pretty straightforward, but we'll talk about it probably in a video with the Star Weavers in general, how I use them all, because they're all pretty much the same with just different war gear. So yeah, the jet bikes, definitely get them. I would say get lots of them if you're playing Harlequins on their own. If you're not playing Harlequins on their own, a good way to use them, in my opinion, is with regular Craft World Eldar. Not to say they're not used good with Dark Eldar as well, but with Craft World Eldar, you can do lots of cool stuff. you can make them much more effective with regular craft welder. And the way I mean by doing this is by putting a Farseer on a jet bike and attaching him to a big unit of jet bikes. It can make them extremely deadly. If you manage to get Fortune, Fortune with them is just unreal. You can reroll all your saves, and you're doing lots of good stuff. This is if you're not going to use the formation, the Harlequin formation, where you're having 2 units of Skyweavers, but it's still nice to have Fortune on them because you can reroll all your invulnerable saves as well. So it's going to be really nice for keeping them alive, especially if you're using with Haywire Blasters, because all of a sudden you don't need to jank and you have a 5-up rerollable invulnerable save. That's pretty nice. Or if you get behind cover, you can still reroll your cover save, because the formation only allows you to reroll jinx saves. I believe it might be cover saves. I thought it was only jinx saves, but I have to double check. But either way, you can still get it, so you don't have to jink and still reroll a cover save of a 4-up or a 5-up, depending on where you are. So potentially you could also have it so you have a Shadow Seer with Stealth and Shrouded. You can get them in cover, get them a 2-up rerollable save. Pretty damn good. You're never going to really... You can pretty much take as much firepower as you want at that point, and you're not going to lose a single guy. A 2-up rerollable save is... You basically just throw the numbers out the window, because you can take 100 shots, fail 6, reroll all those, and maybe lose 1 at worst. So you can take essentially 100 wounds without even really worrying about it too much. And because I've done it. I've taken, 60, 70 wounds from a whole bunch of Punishers from a Guardsman player, and lost nothing. And it's just it's unreal how much you can soak up with a 2-up rerollable save. So if you ever have the opportunity of getting one, I recommend you get one, because you've pretty much made that unit invincible. Another good thing you could do with them is you could opt to take the telekinesis powers and hope for invisibility. Invisible jet bikes, yeah, seems good to me. I mean, it'd be pretty darn hard to deal with that. However, it is, obviously random, but you're still having a Farseer in there definitely helps them out durability-wise as well. He does have 3 wounds with toughness 4 and a 3-up armor save, and to be honest with you, he's pretty much cheaper than your other jet bikes. If you really count like by wounds, I mean, he's only 115 points or something like that, which is a lot. But if you think about it, he's going to have a 3-up save, a toughness 4. He's not going to need to jink. And you can use him as a shield and keep your army alive longer that way, which is also really good. Another thing you could do is you could also put in, if you're taking them the close combat method way, and you're taking them with the formation to let them reroll jinx saves, I recommend you take an Otark on a jet bike. This will help them big time with dealing with any kind of big, tough unit that has a big, scary character. He could accept the challenge and soak up a bunch of damage with this vulnerable save, which is nice. And also you can give him a power lance as well to kind of fit their theme, sort of. And it's also fairly cheap. I think it's only like 15 points for a power lance, and I think it's only 60 points for the Archon, and then 15 points for the jet bike. So you're looking at 90 points for a 3-wound Archon, or not Archon, Otark, which is really nice. And if Eldar is going to be a primary detachment of yours, you can easily fit a Farseer on a jet bike or an Archon on a jet bike, no problem. Especially if you're going to take the Eldar Warhost, because the Eldar Warhost just comes with a Farseer. And yeah, I mean, you throw them on a jet bike for 15 points and put them in the unit of those jet bikes, and all of a sudden you have an awesome, mobile Farseer supporting your army and keeping stuff alive and blowing stuff up with Eldritch Storm and whatnot, which is an awesome power. But I'll talk about Eldar more in depth in the future. I think it was worth to mention that allying in Eldar with jet bikes with your Harlequins is a good idea, for sure. I have to play more around with it. I haven't really done it that often because I've been playing them pretty much purist, but just overall, I think they'd be a very good way of using your Harlequin jet bikes. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions about Harlequin Jet bikes, or you think I missed something, or you think I am wrong about certain things, leave a comment below. I want to hear about it. I want to see what other people are using them for, to help better my gameplay. And thanks for listening, guys. Please like and subscribe if you like what you hear, and I will continue on later with more Harlequin tactics.